Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
Hey, this is Charlie from Crescent Ballrooms on Promoter 101.
Welcome to the Promoter 101 podcast, my friends. It's episode 186 of our limited run of 200 shows. Once they're gone, they're gone. They're going to destroy the mold. That's all she wrote.
Dan, I think they broke the mold with you anyways, so it's only following that we break the mold on this podcast after episode 200, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a few tricks still left up our sleeves in these last 15 episodes of this podcast. So today is no different. We've got AGI's Dennis Arfa here on the podcast. Agent to the Stars, talking about working with, well, quite frankly, everyone from Rodney Dangerfield to the Beach Boys, Andrew Dice Clay, and his epic career-spanning run with William Joel. You know that guy, little guy out of New York, Dan?
I know him better as Billy.
Bill Joel?
Plus, a war story with co-CEO of AEG Presents Europe, Steve Homer. Now, this guy, Luke, this guy is a mensch. He's kind of a legendary dude. And I got to say, I just respect the hell out of him. Thrilled that he's here on Promoter 101.
Looking forward to it as well, too. You know, Toby Leighton Pope, Steve Homer, what a dynamic force over in the UK. Really glad that we got him on this podcast, Dan.
So if they're a dynamic duo, which one is the Batman and which one is the Robin between Toby and Steve?
Oh, wow, Dan. You're asking me to insult one of them by calling them Robin. That's really what you're tricking me into. And I won't fall for it. It's not going to happen. They are just a dynamic duo, Dan.
I think I know them both well enough to say that they'd both be the Robin to the other one's Batman because they're both classy like that.
Well, I think that would be their own respective answers to each other because they are classy gentlemen, and you'll learn that and hear more about it as we have them on this podcast, including maybe a feature interview coming up with Steve Homer soon, right?
Sounds about right. That's kind of how that works here.
That's how it goes. Promoter 101, episode 186 starts right now.
Hey, this is Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
As we mentioned several times before, the podcast is coming to an end, but you can celebrate our very last interview live and direct at the beautiful AIBA conference in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, baby, October 27th at 2 p.m. It's the Promoter 101 podcast final interview. On the dais, the featured guest, the one and only Deborah Wathwell, Senior Vice President of Global Touring at AEG Presents. It just doesn't get any bigger than that. Go to aiba.org to get your ticket information right now.
If you haven't already registered, hit up ieba.org. Do it right now. There are only a few badges left. Check it out.
Hey, Luke, what are you wearing right now?
Well, Dan, I'm wearing no shoes right now. I've kicked off my Sperry's.
Ooh.
And I'm wearing a white Promoter 101 t-shirt, Dan.
That turns me on.
That's right. I even had the Promoter 101 hoodie on a plane the other day, repping on a flight from Nashville to New York. We do have t-shirts. We do have hoodies. Promoter101.net/merchandise. We've got a whole new line of things that you need to check out. Not just because it's really deeply satisfying to our egos to see them on airplanes and at conferences and on posts online, but because it's doing a lot of good, actually, and we should tell the listeners why.
You mean we're not getting the money for this?
No, Dan. In fact, somebody else is, an amazing organization run by the Recording Academy called Music Cares.
It's a beautiful thing. Buy the t-shirt, $20. Buy the hoodie, $50. All of the money, it goes to Music Cares, 100%. And the people at Prism are going to match it. So you spend 20, they spend 20, Music Cares gets 40. You spend 50 on a hoodie, they'll spend 50. They get 100, up to $10,000. They're going to do this for us. What great people at Prism. They're doing great things for Music Cares. You can buy shirts right now. Promoter101.net/merch. Hook it up.
Check it out. It's all for a good cause.
If you got something you want to share with us, simply email us at Steiny at Promoter101.net.
You know what? If you don't like email, and that's okay, you can find us on social media. You're more than welcome to follow us. Join the conversation on Twitter. I'm at W. Luke Pierce. Dan's at The Jude. This show is Promoter 101. Hit us up. Let us know what you think.
We're on the Instagram at Steiny at Promoter 101. And then Luke is W. Luke Pierce, and I'm Dan Presents. We're on that Facebook thing, Promoter 101, the Tumblr thing, Promoter 101. And Connor, where else?
On the World Wide Web at Promoter101.com. Plus, now find us on LinkedIn.
This is Karen from 10 Club Ticketing, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Dan, man, there's not too many of these left where we get to just name drop a bunch of people. So let's just get to it. Let's celebrate some birthdays this week, September 17th to the 23rd, 2019.
Tuesday, 9/17, a mensch of a man from APA. You love him and I do. Mr. Gregory Newman, or Craigie Fresh to the people in the know.
Craigie Fresh, happy birthday, brother. On Wednesday, 9/18, wishing a happy birthday to the man down in Austin, Aaron Pincus.
Pincus. Thursday, 9/19, Nashville's own Aaron Parker.
On Friday the 20th, let's wish a happy birthday to Lily Sims Williams, Chris Porter, and Nick Karras.
Saturday, 9/21, Dave Lucas of the Old Sunshine Promotion Firm, and Claudio Torado.
On Sunday, 9/22, we're wishing a happy birthday to New Frontier Touring's J.D. McCorkle.
Monday at 9/23, AJ Gross, Bill Bounce, Ted Chapin, and the legendary agent, Mr. Samuel Hunt.
Wishing a happy birthday to Sam Hunt and everyone else from the gang here at Promoter 101.
But mostly the agent of Run the Jewels, Samuel Hunt.
Yes.
Like that guy.
I am Barbara Hubbard.
Mark Campana,
Ted Heinig,
Skip Richmond,
Nick Miller,
Joshua Knight,
Darren Rosen,
Brian Hill,
Greg Wolf,
Darren Zimmerman,
Scott Jampino,
Jason Bernstein,
And I'm on
Promoter 101.
the greatest podcast in all the land.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 52.
Nick Storch.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should is something I try to live by. And I think that your reputation is what ultimately will guide your career long past maybe the best parts. Or, I don't know, I want to go to bed every night knowing that I was righteous by everyone. And even if those people weren't righteous, I want to know I did the right thing. Doesn't mean I won't make mistakes. Doesn't mean I won't judge a scenario wrong sometimes. I'm not perfect. But I want to do the right thing for everyone because it's kind of like there's the old school model of things are isolated and don't impact each other, but there's the truth that everything is connected and the system has to all work. So if the promoter's losing their ass constantly, why are you going to do something to help me when I really need it? You're going to say, get lost. I just lost 5 shows in a row for you. I'm not waving the merch. I'm not doing this special thing. But if there's a good arrangement, when I really need you and say, dude, I got to deliver on this one, I've found it's...
Yeah, I'm going to be there for you then.
Of course I got you. Why wouldn't I? And so I think that's really important. Everyone needs to win. I think it's a problem, and I've held my tongue in some of your Facebook posts about this, but we all have to win as a group so that the whole system is healthy.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to build the act to the next level because the payday doesn't happen until the act is selling a legitimate number of tickets.
Yep.
And that's at least a full ballroom, if not bigger, that we're talking about. I mean,
totally.
If we all put our overheads into our expenses, we're losing on club sellouts.
Right.
So we're investing in the future. We're hoping that they get there. So we all need to get them there as quick as possible. So we're all on the same team. Because nobody's thinking, oh, we sold 600 tickets. That's great. What we're saying is that's great. We're going to get to make money back soon.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I don't know. Just have always tried to look at it like it's over the long enough timeline. If you win a few times and the act is really starting to pop, I'm going to call and say, I need everything. And you're going to go, yep, I know. I mean, there's a process to it. You can't just be thump constantly every time.
Hey, this is Craig Newman. For all you lovers out there, turn on the AM radio, put down your inhibitions, and pick up a cool glass of Promoter 101.
Kicking things off on this episode of Promoter 101, we're going to start things off with a war story. Joining us now from all the way in London, the co-CEO of AG Presents Europe, Steve Homer.
In London, hang out, Steve Homer. And, dude, you got a war story for us?
Yeah. Well, it's actually related to my wedding. There's 2 elements to this.
One of the elements was getting married, right?
Well, yeah, okay, I suppose so. No, it was good fun. We decided to arrange it all ourselves. This was about 11 years ago. The story is that literally at the time of the wedding, I was literally doing a Jay-Z arena tour. And the day of my wedding was when Jay-Z was playing in the O2. There was no way, obviously, I was going to that show. So, obviously that was not going to happen. But 3 days prior to the wedding, as part of the tour, we were doing Bournemouth International Centre with Jay-Z. And it was Jay-Z playing, and Ronson was support, and it had done okay. It hadn't done brilliantly. The whole thing was good, but not fantastic. And I went along to the Bournemouth show, and I was there with the manager, and then he said, do you want to come and meet Jay? And I said, of course, yeah. So I went in, and the first thing I was saying, look, Jay, really sorry, but I'm not going to be at the London show this weekend because I'm getting married. And he went, that's okay. I understand that. It's definitely fine. And so we were talking a bit, literally just about the general sort of tour and how it had done. And then he sort of brought it back to where you're getting married. And we say, we found this place, which is not far from where we live. It's a private house, but, we've rented out. It's all been a bit problematic, Toby had tried to get the owner to sort the fireworks out, and she didn't want the fireworks. all this
fireworks
sort of
at your wedding?
Yeah, no. Well, he was trying to, but she wouldn't. It was just long story about things like that. But literally, I noticed that there was in the room, because the room was quite big and it was quite dark, just obviously how he liked it. But there was a woman sat about sort of 10 feet away. And
this is Jay-Z's dressing room?
This is Jay-Z's dressing room. And I hadn't actually noticed her or anything like that. And literally, when we started talking about the wedding, and she literally just sat up and goes, you're getting married this weekend. Tell me all about where are you getting married? What are you doing? And literally, I had 10 minutes with Beyonce talking to me about my future wedding that was coming up in a couple of days, and I'm there. She was going, oh, how many people are you inviting? Is the family, who's coming? And it was really weird. She was so engaged in the whole process. You didn't even know she was there? I honestly didn't know she was there. She was sat reading a book, literally just in sort of sweats, effectively. She was there to support her husband, and it was really cool. And literally, as I left at the end of the night, she gave me a big hug and said, congratulations, enjoy your wedding. That was really sweet. But then a few days later at the wedding, we'd arranged for various people that were going to, it was family and there was friends and there was people in the industry as well that came along. And we'd arranged for some various things. We had like a Beatles tribute because all my mum's side of the family are all from Liverpool, so they're all massive Beatles fans. Plus,
Jay-Z was already booked that night.
Yeah, exactly. He was down the road, and I tried to get Chaz and Dave to do it actually, but unfortunately they were booked as well. But one of my good friends was always Justin from there, and he agreed that they would play the wedding, And it was funny because we had a number of things, but they came on and they played, and it was Justin had decided that he was going to do all songs that had love in the title, or related
that could still
to
be a 4-hour wedding, with just Beatles songs.
So we had 2 versions of The Power of Love. We had the Jennifer Rush one, and we had the Huey Lewis of the News version of the different songs. We had White Wedding. We had all these. And then I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which was the Darkness song. So they did like a sort of 40-minute set of literally just cover versions of anything to do with love and marriage and things like that. And it was brilliant. We had all the cousins and all their kids and everyone all dressed and sort of like literally just rocking out with the Darkness in this really small
I thought you said you booked a Beatle tribute band.
I did book a Beatle tribute band, and the Darkness played as well. Yeah.
Okay, you skipped that somehow, that the Darkness... the Beatles love songs, and somehow Darkness is playing your...
Well, yes, yeah. Well,
you kind of buried the headline on that one.
The Beatles actually closed the show. The Beatles tribute act actually closed the show, and it was the Darkness were the supporting attraction. But no, it was great. It was really good fun. It was good because they all took time out to have photos taken with all the family and things like that. So it was a really entertaining evening, to say the least.
Even at your own wedding, you had 2 acts play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's always the thing about this job for me has always been and my dad sort of summed it up a couple of years ago, and he sat me down and we were just talking in general because he's just had his 80th birthday, and he was saying, he said, so you're really not going to get a proper job, are you? At any time, And I went, no, you're right. So he said, this is your career then, is it? He's a bit of a musical fan anyway. He's a massive jazz fan, but trad jazz, not anything like that. And he was a lecturer for years in electronics, and so he was always a frustrated musician, but I don't think he ever realized that
this could be a real job.
There was a proper job, at the end of this. So music has always been so important to me as my life. So when I was getting married, it was a perfect opportunity to sort of indulge that, shall we say, as well.
Steve will be back next week for a full Promoter 101 Masterclass interview. And I got to tell you, it is one hell of an interview.
It's Bill Kittle from Tour Design. Grab your cognac, sit next to the fire, hug your girl. I'm right here on Promoter 101.
It's Monday, so that means it's time for a new Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Dan, who we got?
This week's Badass of the Week from activist Bernie Cahill, a manager trying to change the world one act at a time, making him this week's Promoter 101 Badass of the Week.
Promoter 101. Dan, I wholeheartedly back this selection. Completely agree. Bernie is a badass indeed. He's so much more than an artist and a visionary. He's an incredible executive leader, and we're excited to watch all the things that he's doing with some of the biggest bands on the planet. Well-deserved Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Congratulations, Bernie.
Hey, this is Mark Geiger from WME, William Morris Endeavor Entertainment, coming to you on Dan Steinberg's podcast.
Established in 2016, Promoter 101 and its illustrious founding fathers, Sir Daniel Steiny Steinberg and the one and only W. Lucas Pierce, have fermented like the finest of wines. And after almost 3 years of bringing you only the most exquisite, educational, and thought-provoking interviews, it is with great pleasure that we bestow unto you the Promoter 101 Masterclass Sessions.
Masterclass.
Dan, our featured interview this week is a extended cut masterclass edition, and deservedly so, because we had the chance to sit down with a legend of the agency world, the Artist Group International's Dennis Arfa. He is an agent who's worked with everybody from the Beach Boys to Rodney Dangerfield to Andrew Dice Clay to the epic run he is having with Billy Joel, one of his longtime clients. Welcome now to the podcast, AGI's Dennis Arfa.
Dennis Arfa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You have worked with some of the best artists in the business, and not just in music. You've got the stars in comedy. You've done pop stars. You've done it all. I mean, when mall tours are big, you had one of the biggest artists in the world. Like, you've done it all, and you've got the Piano Man playing stadiums. Let's start there. How do you turn that into a stadium act sold out in every ballpark it's playing? How does that happen?
Well, first of all, it starts with Billy. When he goes on stage, prior to him actually getting on the stage, you hear the music from the natural. He just has that ability to transform an arena, a stadium, into a club. It's just a natural gift that he has, that he's always had. So being able to see this transformation, it starts with the artist, his body of work, which is the soundtrack of so many people's lives. And his music is in that Beatle-esque category.
You guys have teamed him up with Elton John and done shows where they play together, which has got to be the most creative thing in the world when you think about it, because normally you would think, all right, I want to be on the furthest part of the planet away from the only other guy that does something similar to what we do. But no, you go, let's put them together and see how big this is when we put 1 + 1 together.
Yeah, we did that for 16 years.
It's a long tour.
Yeah, you know, off and on for most of 16 years. We played throughout the whole world. It was an amazing time. It was, you know, now you think about it, there's not a stadium that's probably big enough that can house both Billy and Elton, because they, you know, Billy sells out stadiums on his own. So to have Elton with him, how do you make the same amount of money unless you charge the fans twice as much, which would be an absurd number? So it's almost financially an impossibility to replicate that, you know, based on the success that Billy has, and obviously Elton's having some success on his own.
Yeah, rolling multiple arenas everywhere is not a bad thing. It seems to me, though, when guys like Elton John or Billy Joel do something, it's not necessarily the deal's fueled by the dollar as much as it is the quality of the performance and what they're doing. So if the two of them wanted to do it, I'm guessing you'd figure out a way to make that work.
I think at the end of the day, you do the right thing, and then the money comes, always.
It doesn't seem like acts get to be those marquee acts when they're fueled by dollar.
No, it starts out do the right thing. If you do the right thing and the smart thing, the money will come. If you're money first, you lose.
Let's go back to that for a minute, because you've had Billy Joel as long as I can remember. Like, you've been his agent. The loyalty that's involved with a relationship like that is amazing.
Well, I've been representing Billy. It'll be 43 years. As long as we've been involved, I never take for granted that relationship. I always feel I have to be productive. I mean, there's nothing like having a friendship and a love and a productive relationship. We're friends. I love Billy, but he's still my client. And I still, as part of my responsibility, is to do my job for him and be his voice in this world. And I don't take that for granted, and I don't assume, well, you've got, this amount of years. No, I've always got to deliver just like he does to the next level.
Let's talk about the idea of the residency. It just seems like you guys have done more shows at Madison Square Garden together than most acts will play, most arenas will actually have in an entire career with total shows. You guys have done over 100 shows at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, we just announced 70th show on this run. So I think we're about 116 or 117 lifetime.
That's amazing. No sign for an end anytime near, right?
Well, you never know. You just don't know when you hit the wall. We all can get humbled when you go on sale. So, we're in uncharted territory. Nobody's ever done this before. It's not like we can go, well, what did this band do when they put on the 70th show? How did they market it? It's an amazing accomplishment that we're here, but it's still show to show. You just never know when it's like, hey, we just ran out of people. I mean, but to be into this is just crazy.
When you're selling tickets, you're in the biggest market in the world. You're in New York. So when you're thinking Madison Square Garden, it's like clearly he's good for 5, 10 nights, whatever. But at this point, you guys are putting shows on sale several months in advance, and people know you guys are always flipping to the next show as the residency has been very well established. Are those destination shows? Are you seeing tourists come in, or is it local? Is it a mix?
Most of it is in the metropolitan area.
So you're not even counting on the tourists?
No, because you can't. Because we're not like a Broadway show where the tickets just sit there for a long period of time. Once we announce we're going on sale, most of the good seats are gone. And a lot of people, like we just announced November 15th last week. Well, how many people know what they're going to do November 15th that are from overseas or from another state? Some people may, but a lot of people don't know that yet. So it's hard for people to commit.
How far out do you know what your dates are? Obviously, you've announced November, but do you know 3 or 4 months ahead of what the shows are going to be?
I have an idea of, we play short game and we anticipate long game.
So with them, with the playoff seasons, like when they know if they're in the playoffs or not, you guys can add dates a little more readily, huh?
Well, fortunately, the Knicks haven't been very good. So when we go on Knicks playoff games and they go, well, it's a Knicks playoff game and you'd have to move if the Knicks make the playoffs. I says, you know what? I'll take that risk. So that's worked out in our favor. And the Garden has been terrific. They gave us Billy's birthday this year, May 9th, and said, it's your date. There'll be no playoff game. So they've actually been able at times to work the system on our behalf.
The idea of seeing an entire stadium sing along to your artist's hits. I mean, you guys 9 baseball stadiums this summer, is that right?
Yeah, we're doing 8 stadiums this summer.
A lot of the stadiums, first time ever concerts. No one else has ever done it. Billy Joel is an act that is so safe and cool and family friendly that ballparks that don't want to do shows are like, yeah, okay, we'll do Billy Joel. That's okay.
Listen, to do what I do as an agent, to me, the ultimate high for an agent, for a promoter, I mean, in this business is for your artist to play and sell out a stadium. There's nothing more fun, exhilarating, rewarding than walking into a stadium knowing that your artist filled the stadium and having 40,000 people in a ballpark singing the artist's songs is the ultimate high. It's the dream come true. And my goal is to have as many dreams come true as often as I can. And to live through the stadium experience is just simply amazing.
What's the current P1 on a normal stadium date with not the fan club or the VIP, just the normal P1?
$149.50.
Okay, which is a pretty reasonable P1 for anybody at this point. And when you put him out 43 years ago, what was the starting ticket price?
20 cents. No, I mean, $6, $5, $7, $7.50.
Okay. So, and then maybe we didn't start the fire, $22 or something?
The industry price levels probably changed during the Silliman era, the original SFX, which is now Live Nation. That era, the prices began to change. I mean, I watched our income double, based on changing of ticket prices.
So Robert Sillerman was a good thing for you in the industry.
Robert Sillerman was a good thing for me for multiple reasons. And Bob Sillerman for me, was the biggest game changer. Probably, I don't know, I say since the Beatles, but he was Woodstock at the time, but he was a major game changer where Live Nation doesn't exist without Bob Sillerman.
Well, it certainly gave a whole bunch of promoters that didn't have a retirement plan a way out.
A lot of promoters made a lot of money. The business became real corporate. It's big business now. Bob turned it into big business. They were pieces. They were fragmented pieces. He put it together and he made a conglomerate, and just the corporate side of the live business now took on a whole new look.
And it's a good conversation you bring up. The corporate side of the business isn't necessarily a bad thing because it has uniformed some things that I think the industry really needed. Some things that artists that are on the road really need to see uniform in every market. Marketing, so it's done the same across the board and it's done well. There are no bad things like that. Promoter is the only guy that'll do that market. It's streamlined now, and that's around the world, which is kind of good for the industry. There's some other things, but personality-wise have changed too. You were in the business long enough to know that guys like Barry Fay and Bill Graham, John Meglin and Larry and all those guys, Ron Delsner, they certainly talk to agents differently in the 80s and 70s than promoters do now. They're certainly not nearly as heated conversations on a day-to-day basis.
Well, the game has changed. They were the pioneers, the Larry Maggots and the Barry Fays and the Jules Belkins and all of those guys. They were the pioneer days. The concept's still the same to these guys that sell as many tickets. And, obviously that's much more sophisticated today than it was, but it's really selling tickets and doing identifying the right acts and the right rooms and et cetera. The concept's the same. But as you said, there's a lot of things that have changed that were good. I think for the younger generation, people coming up today, it's harder to make it. When you were a young promoter and you were competing, maybe you were competing with Larry Maggot or you're competing with Bob Kelly in Memphis or whoever. And not that it was easy to compete with those people, but there seemed to be more room than being a young guy going against AEG or Live Nation. It used to be going up against millionaires. Now you're going up against billionaires. So before you needed to get to the fight, maybe you needed a knife or a gun. Today you need like a nuclear bomb to be able to compete with the size and the magnitude of the big promoter.
Well, yeah, because I might have been able to send an arena offer against Barry as an independent, but I can't send a global tour offer against Live Nation as an independent.
Yes. So your opportunities. The opportunities for the younger promoters to stick out in a promotion company is very difficult. So there aren't really the rising stars. Also, the game is much more sterile. People can become personalities. It's very hard for young people to develop personality in a game that the umbrella is corporate. It's very hard to distinguish yourself as a young promoter because you don't have that kind of independence.
Are there any young promoters that you deal with?
Let's define young. If you consider 40 young, 35, but not many. And there's certainly not many 30-year-olds. Now, I'm not necessarily representing a lot of younger bands.
Right. I imagine Michael Arfa and Pete Pavlero are dealing with those guys, and Nick Storch, sure.
And are dealing with younger promoters on a smaller level, but certainly not on a superstar level. Are there any young promoters? I've discovered good marketing people, some good backup people in different companies, but there's not that I am not aware of any significant promoter that is under 40 years old that is promoting arena concerts.
Well, a big part of that is loyalty too, is you've been very loyal to the guys that you've worked with for the years.
You try to be loyal as best as you can, but just the same game. It's like I have loyalty from Billy Joel, but my job is to do a good job. I can't be loyal to people if they're not competent at any level. You can be my guy for 20 years. And I've seen people who have been major promoters and for one reason or another, they're no longer with a Live Nation or an AEG. They go independent and all of a sudden they're not competing or playing the game on the same level Therefore, when you have a superstar coming to town, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the resources, they don't have the knowledge anymore. It starts to dissipate. And so you want to be loyal to them, but they can't offer you what
you'd be doing a disservice to your client without having those resources.
Yes, I need to know who else is in the market. I need to know what's going on sometimes on that playing field. And a promoter who is no longer at, let's say, Live Nation or AG and is vested in the arena business, the stadium business, as the years go by, it's not what they know anymore. So sometimes you stay loyal to a promoter, and they've been out 5-6 years, they get into trouble or they're grasping for straws. So you got to be careful. There's loyalty, but there's not blind loyalty. My first loyalty is to do what's best for my client. And hopefully there are people that go along with me for the ride and we're on the same ride, but there are people you lose along the way.
You have not only sold your company once, but you've been able to do it twice.
Yes.
How'd you manage that?
Well, the first time with Bob.
Is that when you went from QBQ to AGI when you sold?
Yes. Well, what happened is when Bob bought us, we were the only agency he bought. I went to him and at the time there were some agents that didn't want to recognize what Bob was doing and what he was accomplishing, and they didn't like the idea that he fast-tracked to being a major player in the music business. Like, where are you not earning your dues? So there was a lot, and there was some jealousy, as opposed to, hey, there's a new pope in town. There was people who were pushing back, and here's Bob investing $1 billion in the business. And I said to him, what are you kidding? You're going to let some agent or a couple agents tell you what you can and can't do? Fuck them. Let's go roll up the agents. So Bob said to me, listen, I will do that with you. But first, I need help in identifying worldwide promoters, because I was the only one in their inner circle that had any experience with globally. So I said, okay. So the first two people I brought in was Thomas Johansson and Leon Ramica from Sweden and Holland. I said, Bob, if you get these two, they will all come, really referring to Europe, which they are now still part of the Live Nation team, and which evolved from SFX. But then Bob said to me, then we went ahead and we're rolling up the agency business. And at the time we were ready to close 5 different deals, he sold to Clear Channel. And he said to me, what would you like to do? Would you like to join Clear Channel? Or would you like your business back? And I said, oh no, I would love to have my business back. And so after 2.5 years, and after he paid me, he gave me my business back.
He just gave it to you. It's a great tip.
Well, he gave me it back to me, but I did a lot of work for him. And, it was very productive for him and enhanced his sale. He did a mensch thing and said, here's your business back.
That is insane.
So having that wonderful experience, I was certainly open to do it again. And, for different reasons, not only just to be financially rewarded, but sometimes have the resources of a billionaire.
It doesn't hurt. So you literally got paid out. And as a tip for being a great concierge, here's your company back.
Well, anybody who buys my business can control my business, because I represent artists, and the artists, I work for them. Always work for them first. So I got to do what's right for them.
Yeah, the tail can't wag the dog.
Yeah, so it's like there's no such thing as controlling me. It's somebody who's just really buying my money or a percentage of my money.
Right, because the artists really control what they're doing.
Yeah. If I don't take care of the artists, I'll lose them, and therefore your investment dissipates. But, so hopefully, though, there's some synergies in the sales and opportunities that come from the people that I've sold to, besides obviously being financially, rewarding. But I've been able to maintain my independence throughout the whole process. I mean, this business is run very much the same way it was run before, 1, Bob Silliman took over, and 2, before Ron Burkle, bought our business.
That was how you were able to do it twice, as you sold it the first time, and then you were giving it back, and you were able to sell it again, which is amazing.
Yes.
Let's go back to a little bit of history, because the dessert for me is you repped some of the biggest comics in the world, and you took Andrew Dice Clay from a club act to selling out Madison Square Garden when no one I know it's a common thing now for acts to sell at arenas, but no one had ever done it, and you did multiples.
Yeah, the dice phenomena. I represented Rodney Dangerfield for the last 23 years of his life. And Rodney's the one who taught me the comedy world. And I saw Rodney used to have these HBO specials and introduce
the new comics,
the young comics. And he was the comic A&R god. You know, he discovered whether it was Sam Kinison and Andrew Dice Clay and Jerry Seinfeld and Roseanne Barr. It was a list of who's who that were on his program. And I went to his club and watched one of the specials, and there was Andrew Dice Clay. And Dice got on stage, and it was like, holy shit. This guy was a visual comic. He was a rock and roll comic. He was exciting to watch. He was fun. He was exciting. He was amazing. I went out to L.A. to go, I wanted obviously very badly to represent him. He was one of the great stories of my career because once he was on Rodney's special and once that aired, the 7 minutes that he was on, he went from clubs to arenas from 7 minutes in that special because we were playing Carolines like, I don't know, 6 months before, and 6 months later, we were selling out Nassau Coliseum.
So did you literally go down to see the taping of the HBO special that Rodney was hosting, and probably just as client service to see your artist do a mic thing that was done here, and discovered accidentally Dice? You just went down to see Rodney do a taping.
That's right. I just saw it, and I saw this guy. I went to L.A. I chased him. As a matter of fact, there's something I read in his book. His father was kind of a semi-manager. I love Dice's father, Freddie. Freddie said when they were choosing agents and what direction to go, they said, Dennis Arfa will go to war for you. They believe that, and then that's true. And the Dice phenomena and the ups and the downs of his career, and God bless how he has, just has revitalized his career. But it was an amazing run.
Now, he wound up getting into a pretty good before the East-West rapper rivalry. He was there first, and him and Kinison had a pretty good rivalry. Did that help the two of them in actuality? Because it seemed like they hated each other in the press, but it seemed like that thing went for a long time, and it actually seemed like it was good business for both of them.
Well, Sam, it reminds me of certain phenomena at certain times. In those days, Sam was like the first shock comic that kind of came out. And then his star started to fall, and Dice came up, and Dice became, took Sam's level to a whole other level. And then Dice's star started to fall, and the ultimate winner of the shock game was Howard Stern. I mean, he wasn't a stand-up comedy.
He had a better platform.
Right. Everything that they represented, everything that created this interest and phenomena, hey, the guy who ended up with the crown was Howard. He became the ultimate, he had the platform, and he became the shock jock. He evolved to becoming them, so to speak. That phenomena has been Howard Stern's for a lifetime.
You weren't in the comedy business until you got into business with Rodney. And monster act. How did that happen?
I was representing the Beach Boys at the time in the early 80s, and they had the same business manager. And the guy from he just saw how much money I was making the Beach Boys and the difference. And he said to Rodney's manager, Estelle Endler at the time, you should meet Dennis Arfa. You should have, you and Rodney. So I went down and I met Rodney. And I remember one time I took Billy with me to meet Rodney. He was at Westbury Music Fair. I took Billy down, Billy Joel. I said, hey, Billy, come on, let's go see Rodney. So me and Billy went down and we saw Rodney, and Rodney and I hit it off. Rodney was, he was a young man's comic, but he was a young thinker. Like, I think I was 31 at the time and he was in his late 50s. And he could identify with me more than the old time William Morris agents who wanted, put Rodney in the Catskills. That was in his head. He was a young head. He was a guy who was getting high. He was a party guy. He hated the old school William Morris, that whole mentality. It turned him off. So he really needed somebody who, his mind, Rodney is to me, is one of the most brilliant comics I've ever met. He was just absolutely brilliant. Some of my funniest times were ever just hanging out with Rodney and some of the things he would say, and just, he was always on. It was just, his DNA was so comical. But he was a young man's comic. And that's why, me having such a disparity in age, he was closer to my mentality than he was to his own peers.
It's just a different business completely than rock and roll. Did it take you a learning curve of like figuring out that casino business of the strip or what have you?
You know, I've learned something a long time ago. When I started in the music business, one of my first jobs was, I was probably 19, 20, and I was managing a band called the Salvation Navy. They were a local band out of Long Island. And one of the things I learned about the difference between the mentality of a band, the difference between the Salvation Navy and U2 is the zeros. The concept's the same. The ego of the guitar player, the bass player thinking he wrote all the songs, or so many of the concepts are the same. It's just the zeros are. So whether you're doing comedy, Latin, urban, yes, it's good to know the nuances of the game around you, but the concepts are very much the same. You think there's a difference between what Garth Brooks is walking out of an arena and the difference of what Pink is walking out, and what the difference is of what Travis Scott is walking out? At the end of the day, you know, it's an arena, it's marketing, it's, you know, the concepts are the same. The bands are different. The genres are different, but the concepts are the same. Hey, Live Nation books them all. The concepts are the same. AEG books them all. You know, Greg Perloff books them all. So though we get pigeonholed a lot of times, and as much as, yes, it's good to, hey, I'm talking to one agent one time not too long ago. This guy's got an explosion of acts, stars. He's still learning about booking 101. What's in a building deal? What's, you know, he was over his head, but he didn't get penalized from the acts for that. But, you know, so he had to obviously, you know, grow very quickly to be able to match the accomplishments of acts. But, you know, I don't believe like it's a, you know, I represented Shakira for a period of time, and people would say, oh, the Latin world, what do you know about the Latin world? Well, I had a superstar in the Latin world. And, you know, at that time, it was like, hey, they weren't asking me. It was the right deals, the right places. We did the first arena tour that she ever played in Europe, and nobody was saying to me, do you know what you're doing? You know, in the Latin field. I mean, those, you know, the nuances we were able to cover. But the bottom line is she was selling out in Cologne, Germany, singing Spanish. So, you know, that we walked out with what we walked out of there with, there was no, well, Jesus, you don't really have an expertise in the Latin game. Yeah, but I have an expertise in the arena business, or the, you know, so, and where most don't.
I want to connect the dots really quick to something you said a minute ago. Business manager from the Beach Boys had made an introduction to Rodney. So through Rodney, you found Dice. So the Beach Boys indirectly brought you Andrew Dice Clay. America's clean-cut surfer boys brought you the dirtiest comic at the time.
And the funny thing is the guy who brought me the Beach Boys was a guy named Jerry Schilling, who, well, it was Michael Mesnick, but the guy who brought me, Michael came, was the Beach Boys. And the guy who could help get me the Beach Boys was a guy named Jerry Schilling, who was part of the Elvis Presley Mafia. And Jerry worked for the Beach Boys, and Jerry was Billy's tour manager in the mid-70s for a while. So Jerry got me and got my spirit, was also very supportive of my involvement with the Beach Boys. That's how so therefore, once I got to the Beach Boys, that's when the Beach Boys business manager recommended me to Rodney. So it actually started from Billy's tour manager on a 1976 Australian tour, Jerry Schilling, where we made that.
Never know where these people are going to develop or wind up.
Things lead to things.
You have a vision for the future of the company? I mean, do you consider yourself a boutique agency? I mean, possibly the biggest of all the boutiques.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're a small independent agency. I think the reason we've done as well as we've done is because we have to really know our stuff. I can't hide behind my branding department or the movies I'm going to get you, and I recognize that's what a lot of people sell, you know, to clients. what I sell is expertise in the touring world. I once had an agent who runs one of the big agencies, and he said to me, I wish I could do a tour like you, which is really, he was saying, I don't have the time. I would really love to be able to get into the nitty gritty of it. And I said, I wish I had your roster, but most can't, and most don't have the time. Most agencies and the big agencies, they're in the volume business. We have different mentalities.
So kind of that Jerry Maguire thing.
Yeah, they got marketing departments. I understand the marketing. I can't understand how you can be an agent, you book a date and you go, here, somebody else do the marketing. How do you stay in touch with that date? Where is your personal commitment to it all? But, I always say in my job, sometimes people will say, describe your job. And I say, sometimes I build the car and sometimes I just put the gas in it. Meaning sometimes people want my services on a very minimal level and sometimes they need the whole ball of wax.
So it's an a la carte thing. You build it around what they need.
Right. But I have the ability to build the car. Most don't on that level. As a matter of fact, some of the better and some of the best promoters, only they can compete on the expert touring level. Most agents can't compete. They don't really have the knowledge, the insight, and it's not how they've been brought up.
Are you going over marketing plans on Billy Joel Stadium dates? Is that so?
Oh, sure. I do everything.
So when Eric Parrott buys Denver and you're playing Coors Field this summer, like you're the one going over that marketing plan with him?
Yes.
That's super in the details impressive.
Absolutely. I know.
I love that.
I monitor the show. I watch the show. I advise them how to do this. I get their local input. We're a team. I use my expertise on knowing my artist, and I use their expertise knowing the marketplace. I pretty much identify which stadiums I'm playing in and decide where to go, but I use my local team very effectively, but I am involved in the marketing, every aspect of but that's, to me, that's what the agent really should be doing. You should really have this kind of knowledge. And what promoter doesn't want my knowledge? And what good local promoter don't I want their knowledge? You want to know what I know. I'm living there.
With Billy in particular, you're playing only Major League Baseball stadiums this summer. Was that a deal with Major League Baseball to do that, or did it just work out that way?
No, I mean, it worked out that way. But then again, we're doing something that's also ridiculous. We're playing two stadiums this summer for the 6th year in a row. We're at Citizens Bank Ballpark in Philadelphia, our 6th year in a row. We're at Fenway Park for our 6th year in a row. Last year, we completed 5 straight years at Wrigley Field. And then we're doing events. We're the first show ever at Camden Yards in Baltimore. We're closing the stadium at Sunlight Stadium in Dallas. So last year, Billy was the first show at Kauffman Stadium, the Royals ballpark, in 38 years. So I like doing events, like doing things that, and I like to play ballparks. A lot of times, like Petco Park in San Diego, people like going there. But there are certainly women who have no interest in baseball, and there are guys who have no interest in baseball, but they like to go to the park. So to see Billy Joel, well, it's nice at the park, and it becomes
just the vibe of it's cool.
The vibe is cool. The vibe is cool. There's a bunch of stadiums. Coors Field in Denver. People want to go. San Diego's that way.
I was just wondering if you'd played the Major League Baseball against the NFL when you're cutting those stadium deals.
No, there's a good relationship with MLB, but it's really not. We really pretty much handpick where we want to go, and usually it's a place that the population wants to go to. I mean, there are stadiums and there are some ballparks that are cold, and I don't play there. Because it's like, unless you're so hot, with the right moment, that the stadium is irrelevant because the people want to go there so badly. But I purposely bypass certain places because they're cold.
With your longstanding industry standing, that you've had this great loyalty from artists, you've built a company, you've sold it, you built it and sold it again. Do you have any advice for the young generation coming up behind us and career longevity?
Well, first of all, in this business, this is a lifestyle. This is not a job. This is like I am 24/7 neurotically on. And I remember my wife years ago, she'd sit there on a Saturday night and at 10 o'clock and I'm answering an email and she says, don't they know better? I says, what, are you kidding me? This is, it's whenever. That's how I live. And probably my family's life has always been around shows and places I had to go. And it was always around my job. That was probably where I was married first. And I think that's one of the reasons I've been able to be successful. I was watching interviews with David Letterman, with Howard Stern, and they both talked about their obsessiveness to be successful and driven by with their art. Well, I mean, they were second guessing whether that was the right approach. But in terms of how they live their life, I've been able to have probably a little bit more balance than they have had, and therefore been able to maintain a family and et cetera. And maybe I was lucky having the right wife and everything worked out. But as obsessed as I am, I think you need that to be successful. I knew when I got into this game that nobody would outwork me. If that was what it took, because to be in this game, nobody needs you. This is a game. It's a luxury industry, and to have value and to have worth, you have to have a passion for it. So anybody young, this isn't a job. If you're like, oh, this is okay. This is something. I didn't do this for the money. I did this because I had passion. I had passion for music. I loved the life of it. I loved the idea that you can go to a show and there was music and there was good-looking girls and people were getting stoned, and it was like, this is for me, and that I can make a living out of it. So if you have any desires for this business, I can only say that you need to be relatively obsessive.
I can't thank you enough for making time for me. This has been something that I was really looking forward to, and you delivered. This was awesome.
I hope I made your day.
Dennis Arfa, masterclass indeed, right here on Promoter 101.
Hi, my name is Toby Leighton-Pope. I work for AG Presents in the UK, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Quote of the week comes to us from Nike's Phil Knight. It's never just business. It never will be. Now, there's a guy that's passionate about his business, his shoes, and his Oregon Duck football. Go Ducks!
Duck, duck, duck.
Goose.
Are you a duck? You're a duck, right?
I am a proud non-graduate of the University of Oregon.
You can always say you matriculated to Oregon. It sounds like a fancier than what it is, but they, at some point in your life, did admit you there. Whether you walked out on your terms or somebody else's, Dan, I don't know.
I did attend the University of Oregon, and it was an honor to not graduate from there.
So hello, my name is Christian Daw. I'm from C2 Concerts in Stuttgart, Germany, and we are on Promoter 101.
This concludes our broadcast day, bringing the house down on episode 186 of Promoter 101 into the you people. You find people with your AirPods in or listen to this on your home speaker. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you to our lovely guests today from AGI, Dennis Arfa, and all the way across the pond, AG Presents Steve Homer. Thank you for joining us this week. We thank you for your time.
You know, since you're thanking people on their earbuds and stuff and listening at home, I'd like to particularly thank the people riding the tube right now in the UK because, you know, in tribute to Steve Homer being on the podcast this week, I think that's important.
I think so, too.
We'll return this Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, Greenwich Mean Time at midnight.
The meantime, Dan, why is it so mean?
Greenwich Polite Time? You've never heard Greenwich Polite Time.
Speaking of folks in Greenwich Nice Time, next Thursday, the show is going to have a featured interview from that very same person from AG Presents, the co-CEO himself, Steve Homer, back on this podcast, doing a full sit-down, Dan, and I cannot wait for it. Make sure you turn in.
I will. I will listen next week to that interview.
You better fucking listen, Dan.
Just chill on the pressure, okay? I'm going to do it.
I'm expecting you to listen, man.
I'm going to binge the podcast, so I'm going to listen right after this one because they're going to I'm going to wait to listen to this one and then listen to that one back to back just so I can be I'm going to do it right now. Hey, thanks so much for buying t-shirts and supporting Music Cares. Until next week, we're wishing you sold out shows for the week to come.
Cheers!
Call your mother.
We are thrilled to announce that Promoter 101 has teamed up with the Recording Academy's Music Cares Foundation to do a little good. And you, our beloved listeners, can help. By going to Promoter101.net and clicking the merch tab at the top of the page, you can pick up a stylish, limited edition Promoter 101 Call Ya Mother t-shirt or hoodie in a huge variety of styles and colors. 100% of proceeds goes directly to Music Cares and their mission to provide a safety net of critical assistance for music people in their time of need. Shipping and handling is absolutely free, and for the first $10,000 we raise, our good friends at Prism are matching donations dollar for dollar. Go to promoter101.net right now, click on the merch tab, pick out one of our awesome shirts, and be the heart and soul of the music community by donating to Music Cares. And don't forget to call your mother.
Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da.